Hello and welcome to InRetroSpect Raw. This is a show that's kind of unscripted, unscheduled. You don't really know when it's coming, but we've had quite a lot of Raws out recently. So getting used to them now, hopefully. It's a show where we give ourselves 20 minutes to decide our top 5 list of a gaming something. So in the past, we've done like top 5 gaming weapons, top 5 gaming sidekicks, all pretty standard stuff until this very show. Because for this In Retrospect Raw, myself, Sam Turner, Peter Willington, Kris Darby and Daniel Frost will probably be deciding probably the most obtuse and avant-garde top 5 list as we decide our top 5 gaming ladders and lifts.
For ladders and lifts.
So there we go, top 5 ladders and lifts. Before we've met here and convened for this episode of Raw, we've been talking behind the scenes about what our top 10 ladders and lifts which appear in games, and we will slice them in twain at a strict time limit of 20 minutes. So here we go, get your pens and papers ready to write down the top 10 and have a think of yourself of what might make your top 5. In no particular order, we have the lift from GoldenEye as you ascend up into the cradle to take on 006. We have the ladder from Dead Space 3. We have the lift or the elevator from Half-Life 2, which Gordon Freeman descends. So you've got Bond going up, Freeman going down. We've got the lift from Metal Gear Solid. I believe, Kris, that's a lift from right at the start.
Yep.
And then we've got the ladder from MGS 3, which is a little bit near the end, just before you fight the end. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got the ladder from The Last of Us. We've got the ladder from Donkey Kong. We've got the lift from Elevator Action Returns. We've got the ladder from Mega Man series. And then the radio tower ladder from the Tomb Raider, the new Tomb Raider franchise. So there's our top 10. Between us now, we're going to have 20 minutes to decide which makes our top 5. This time, Raw is being sponsored by Siri. He's going to be keeping the time for us, only because I think this is the coolest thing that Siri can do. So, Kris Darby, when you hear Siri telling us that we can go, all right, you can start by telling us which one of those 10 lifts or ladders belongs in our top 5, all right? So, only when Siri says, okay? Here we go. All right. Timer... 20 minutes. Hold on, Kris.
Okay, here's a place matching right time.
I didn't want to go to right time. It's pretty close to me, whatever it is. Right, we'll try that again. Hang on. This is Raw. Timer, 20 minutes. Hold on, Kris.
Okay, 20 minutes and counting.
Go, Kris!
All right, brilliant. There's a reason why they don't use Siri in when people are planting bombs.
Did you say Blue Wire Hotel?
Okay, I'm going to go straight in, gentlemen, with Metal Gear Solid 3, The Ladder. And I say The Ladder because it is probably one of the tallest and longest ladders in video gaming history. It is so tall and so long that they feel as if they have to play music behind while you're climbing up the ladder, essentially. Yeah. And it is a very quiet riff on the opening theme for Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
That's true. You do climb that ladder for an awfully long time.
Well, actually, it feels long, but it's actually about 2.5 minutes it takes to climb to the ladder.
But, Dan, is that too long to be looking at a gentleman's rectum?
Let's open that out to the group, shall we?
I think it's a really pivotal moment in the MGS3 story. I think it represents a great struggle that Snake has to go through. There's all this symbolism to it. It's like you say, like it's this world record holding. It's got to be a world record holding ladder, surely, in video games. Guinness would eat that sort of stuff right up. This has got to be in.
No, I'm going to say that we bump this one off the list. We move the ladder from beneath Snake and put him in a lift. I think that lift, because it's that. We've spoken about it before. It's that lift moment where he enters it and takes off his scuba suit to reveal Snake for the first time, and the title sequence comes up, and you're just like, yes, this is it. This begins, and getting to that elevator is just like one of those moments you'll never forget in a game.
Yeah, it's a rite of passage, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I actually, even though as cool as that is, like the ladder is actually, because I did a podcast on Snake Eater for InRetroSolid, and actually that ladder is really significant because. For want of a better word, the actual Greek word for ladder is climax. It actually is. That's where we get the climax in a narrative from. It comes from the staircase. And there you are actually building to a climax in that game, Snake Eater, by climbing that ladder. You get a sense of all that struggle that Snake's going through, because the developers didn't have to put that in there. They could have just thrown a cutscene in. But there's something quite pleasing about this sense that you're having to climb up to your to face that boss. You're having to climb up. You're having to put that effort in, that energy to climb to that person. You're witnessing.
But there's more than one. But the thing is, in MGS, it's not just a lift at the start. There's a lift throughout the whole thing, and the sanctity and the kind of the chance to let you breathe. What those lifts offer. You know, when you're getting chased around and suddenly you're just able to make it into a lift, and you press that button, and you're just like, oh, finally, that feeling of relief. I think that's why.
I'd say that the lifts are far more iconic. That lift sequence is far more iconic in the Metal Gear pantheon. Like if we're going with like great scenes, then it's from MGS1. It's not from MGS3. Yeah. Even though I would say from a gameplay production point of view, the one in MGS3 is much better.
Agree.
MGS1's just looks cool, but MGS3's is more symbolic.
And actually, somebody said that I was rewatching the ladder scene on YouTube, and somebody said that it was one of the best boss battles in the game.
Right, we've spent 4 minutes talking about two things.
I reckon MGS is going to go in there, one shape or another. So let's move on.
Yeah, but which one, Chris? You can't just move on.
I reckon the ladder. Me and Pete say the ladder.
Dan,
come on,
cast and vote.
I'm going to have to go with the lift, I'm afraid. The ladder, I always just kind of thought was a really long ladder. It never really had that much of an effect on me. Whereas the lift, you do get that sense, and it's kind of the build-up, the element of, okay, this is starting, it's all coming up. Who is this person, this mysterious person in the scuba suit? And then, boom, Metal Gear Solid. That's... much prefer it to a really long ladder, basically.
Lift it is then. So,
talking of really long ladders, Dan, Tomb Raider.
Yes, I put this one forward. This is the radio tower ladder from the newest Tomb Raider. The reason I've put this one forward is, for me, when I was playing this game, I was enjoying it, but I wasn't really getting kind of what everyone was so excited about. And then I get to this bit where you climb the ladder, and as Lara is climbing the ladder, the camera kind of, as they often do in the Uncharted games, the camera kind of pans out, and you suddenly see this vast landscape behind you, and you are still in control of Lara, but you're this now tiny person climbing this ladder, and you realise the scale of where you are, and just that whole sequence, and you're totally in control of it. It's just breathtaking. Suddenly you think, okay, this game now has moved on to another level. And it's that moment that did it for me. That moment where I sat down and thought, actually, this deserves my time. This is more than just another iteration on Tomb Raider. This is more than just Lara Croft in an Uncharted game. This is its own entity, and this looks fantastic. And for me, I think it has to be in the top 5. I think it would have to be.
The great thing about that ladder is the vulnerability. About it. I think that's a great thing about ladders in games anyway, is how vulnerable it kind of makes Lara at that moment. And you're right, it's kind of it does mark a defining point in the reimagining of the whole Tomb Raider franchise. That I think even narrative wise, if I'm right, Chris, it's from that moment that she climbs ladder that she does actually make sort of physical turning point in the whole narrative of the game.
It's a distress beacon at the top. It's a radio tower, so she has to climb it to kind of send that message across. And I just love how, as she climbs, the higher she gets, the more fragile and thinner the ladder gets until it's just a few rungs sticking out of a pole almost. And you really feel it's kind of, they weave QuickTime events into it as well. So you really do feel the kind of how terrifying this is, really. But her will is kind of so set on getting to the top of this that you just don't look down. You can't look down as a player because you generally feel agoraphobia.
All right,
acrophobia,
Pete, any objections or another ladder or lift you'd like to throw into the mix?
Please chuck that one in, and then let me talk about Elevator Action Returns,
right.
a great game from Taito that kind of got missed. It came out on the Saturn, I believe. It was quite a small release. The whole game is based around elevators, or as we would say in Britain, lifts. It's an action game based on the original Elevator Action, but it takes a slightly more anime action, fast-paced, shooty sort of tone to all of the proceedings. It's got a bit of an anime lilt to it all, and a big part of it is going up and down a very large building, a big sort of tower block. And using lifts to your advantage. So like going down, coming out of the lift and like shooting everybody on one floor and then zipping off to another one. Absolutely superb. And they are integral to the lift. The reason that this deserves to be in is simply because this game, which is excellent, could not exist if it were not for the humble lift. So it's got to come in. It's got to go in, right?
That's like saying that something deserves to go in just because it's got it in the title.
No, but it's fundamental to the experience itself. Like the lift, everything on this list is, with another exception, which is also one of my games, wouldn't be the same game without either a ladder or a lift. So Elevator Action Returns wouldn't be the game that it is without a lift. And the other one, and I'm gonna do it right now.
Go for a double header.
Is Donkey Kong.
Oh, that is
another arcade game, Miyamoto's first, so without the ladders from Donkey Kong, again the game itself wouldn't be anything. The ladders represent ways to get up to the next platform. We always think that Mario was always a fantastic platformer, but he wasn't. He always used lifts to get everywhere, and that is where he
before he could jump.
When he was Jumpman,
yes.
He wasn't actually that good at jumping.
No.
So the ladders are integral there. So I would say that those two games, because they are so intrinsically linked to the gameplay themselves, the ladder from Donkey Kong and the lift from Elevator Action Returns must make it into our list.
I'm happy to go for Donkey Kong only because the iconography of even just that little shifting pixel animation of Mario climbing up the ladder and that little sound, and that kind of how that must have, when it came out, that must have been such an interesting way of navigating the screen. We'll leave that hanging precariously in the air, like a man who brought the wrong ladder to wash the windows and now appears in insurance adverts. Kris, explain to us why the Dead Space 3 ladder is in there alongside Elevator Action and Donkey Kong.
Well, the Dead Space 3 ladder was actually one of the origins of where this concept for this particular
10 minutes left
came from. Okay. Thank you, Siri. But basically, aside from the fact that the ladder does have a little bit of an annoying quality, the fact that if you're playing co-op and your mate is at the bottom of the ladder and you want to climb down it, you've got to wait for them to move, and vice versa. If they're at the top, you've got to wait for them to move before you can move up. So it's a little cumbersome in that regard. But like MGS3, there is this build to a climax. There is this sense of tension with a ladder. And one of the things I love about Dead Space 3, even with what feels to be quite comparatively safe areas, you still don't feel safe on a ladder. And actually, that cumbersome fact that I mentioned earlier, that problem about you have to wait for your partner to move on, it does make you feel vulnerable because...
Kris, but that's just incredibly annoying, isn't it?
It is annoying, but I do... Well, when we were playing co-op the other day, Sam, I had to move so you could climb up the ladder. It left me on my own on that platform, and it just kicked off a load of necromorphs coming my way. And meanwhile,
I'm plodding up a ladder.
coming up a
You know,
ladder
but
behind me.
that's kind of
And
like
I am shooting backwards away from the necromorphs into the ladder that you can't get up anymore. So it does create tension in that sense, and there is a sense of fragility there. But I'm happy to let this slide, though.
Yeah,
because I think we should move on to the Half-Life 2 lift, because that is an iconic moment from that game.
Yeah, because for me, like the Dead Space 3 ladder is ruined by that whole. You can't actually go down it until someone moves, and you can't give you space. I just think that's just lazy kind of programming. I don't like that at all. Whereas Half-Life 2, Peter Willington. We've spoken about this moment before, this wonderful, tender moment. Would you describe it quickly? What happens in this lift in Half-Life?
Which lift are we talking about?
So this is Half-Life 2. This is the last stage as Gordon Freeman descends the lift and Alex puts her hand to the glass.
Of course. Well, I mean that pretty much. That pretty much wraps up what it is. It's it's a very touching moment of. It's the moment where you kind of realise, as a person who's been playing the Half-Life games for a while and has been very excited for the second release and seen all this hype and all that sort of thing, it's one of the very few moments where you actually feel like you embody the character of Gordon Freeman again. Like and with the sort of increased fidelity of the character models that we kind of forget that Valve brought in with Half-Life 2. Specifically in the eyes and the fact that they looked a lot more realistic. It's when what's her name? Something Vance?
Alex
Vance. She, when she looks into your eyes and makes contact with you, it is extremely affecting, and it is one of the most sort of emotionally resonant moments of the last generation.
And it all happens on a lift.
It all happens there. Yeah.
Dan, do you want to chuck that in, or would you rather put something else in?
I'm happy to put that in because the lift is the vehicle for a strong narrative moment to occur, and for me that does add the aspect of the lift to it, because lifts at the end of the day are just going up and down, taking you from one place to another. So you need that bit of extra, and having a strong narrative moment, which at the end of the day you've waited a long time for a moment such as this. I'm happy for it to go through in there. I'd like to put forward the ladder from The Last of Us. One of the reasons I'd like to put this one forward is it's a ladder in the same way that all the others are, but the strategic use of this ladder within the game is, I think, quite important. For so much of the game, you are having to be stealthy, and you're hiding, and you're keeping out of sight of your enemies. And often, when you're going up against the enemies, you're always trying to find that space where they can't see you, and you can take a breath almost. And I think every now and again you may see a ladder somewhere, because there aren't that many around in the game. They're not abundant. But when you have one, you can then use it. If you're quiet, you can use it without anyone seeing and get onto a higher platform, and that allows you to take a breather and to be able to, from the higher viewpoint, assess your surrounding and see where everyone is. And you can plot out your route from a higher point where you don't have that tension of somebody about to walk past you. And I think the strategic aspect that the ladder offers you in The Last of Us, I would put that in the top 5.
But I think that ladder's pretty clumsy. The fact, you kind of pick it up and you can only put it down, and then you can sometimes get caught into those animation loops where you press triangle to put it down, but you didn't mean to put it down there. But Joel's still got to carry on that animation loop, even though it's in the wrong place. And they can create tension, but aren't they just a little bit clunky, Pete?
I mean, they're also extremely limited use. You never have to take them more than 20 feet away from the thing that you actually want to be doing.
5 minutes, by the way.
And it's another thing that makes that world feel a little bit more gamified than what it actually wants to do, which is try and present this cinematic narrative. So I would say that the lifts are a part of the small issue that is with that game in terms of making it a bit too gamey.
So we're just coming to 4 minutes left. We've got 3 guaranteed entries into our top 5 ladders and lifts here on InRetroSpect: Raw, the MGS lift, the Tomb Raider ladder, and the Half-Life 2 lift. I would like to propose that the GoldenEye lift, as you're ascending to go towards a cradle, just for the Muzak version of the classic Bond theme tune, slides straight in there.
Yes, it does.
Good.
Like,
I can't-
who doesn't like a Muzak version of that theme? Like it's incredible. It takes all of the action and heightened epicness that we've always associated with the James Bond theme and turns it into a horrible Muzak sort of lift from an
It's
ordinary
brilliant.
skyscraper.
It's brilliant. It's unexpected, and I think it has the impact. I think it's an iconic lift. If it's going in your top 5, then it's going to be in there. We've got one more to consider. Who would like to speak us through the Mega Man series ladders?
Ooh, that's going to have to be me, isn't it? Because you guys don't really know it. They pose a serious threat to your well-being. They are difficult to get onto. Fairly tricky in terms of ladder navigation to get off of, and you can fall from them extremely easily by just taking a single hit. And if you take a hit and you do fall off of them, then you can fall multiple screens or into one of those bottomless pits that are everywhere in Mega Man, and then you're dead, and then you have to restart the entire game all over again. This was the Dark Souls before Dark Souls.
So is this ladder here whereas all the ladders and lifts we previously discussed are kind of ladders that, as Kris is saying, provide that climactic moment or have some sort of narrative or gameplay device, where these are probably the most precarious and horrible ladders. These
are the horrible ladders. But they still provide lots of tension and situations that are precarious. They make you concerned whenever you see them because you think, right, well, an enemy's got to appear near me because I know that the designer is trying to kill me at every possible opportunity. I accept if they aren't going to go in because I know that we're not massive fans of Mega Man collectively, and I sort of feel like it is a bit of a weak entry, but it deserves its place in the sun. So
it's got to fight against 3 others potentially that we've disregarded. Dan, I'll throw this out to you. What takes your fancy then between Mega Man, elevator action lift, and the Donkey Kong ladder? Which one do you think is deserving to slide alongside those we've already chosen into our top 5?
Well, Mega Man, I don't think can really go in there, and that's mainly because this is a top 5 ladder. It
certainly is. I'm glad you've got the concept by now, Dan.
Yeah, but by the sounds of it, that in no way, shape, or form is that ladder considered a top ladder. If it was a top worst ladders, then possibly.
I like it with 1 minute left. You're getting into this 1 minute. I'm
going to say, as one of my favourite things is to lampoon all of Pete's obscure choices on Raw. However, I think Elevator Action Returns is a game about elevators. And I think that's why you should go in the top 5.
I watched a great boss fight where you just spend all your time on an elevator that goes up and down, up and down. I thought that's quite good. Kris, Pete, are you going to go elevator action? 30 seconds to go?
Of course.
Okay, all right. So Kris, depending on what I might choose, what are you fancying? So let's say you got elevator action lifts left, 20 seconds to go, or Donkey Kong. What's going to make our final top 5?
I honestly think it's such an obscure title. Elevator Action Returns needs some more exposure, and I think this should be
its platform. All right, then. So here we go. With 13 seconds left, we have our top 5 in retrospect, ladders and lifts. In at number 5, no particular order. I'm not going to make this on time. MGS. I'm just going to roll it out, and I'll just do it at the end. There we go. Siri, what's the time?
That is the sound that gets me up every morning.
Is it?
It's horrible.
It gets me up. So there we go. The timer is done. So MGS lift, the lift, and the various elevators it used throughout the games made our top 5. The ladder in the most recent Tomb Raider entry is also in there. We've got Half-Life 2, the lift in there. Particularly the one that Gordon Freeman descends as he goes to the final conclusion of the game. There's a lift in GoldenEye. Just brilliant. I reckon we should end this episode of Raw with that music from the GoldenEye lift. I'm going to slot that in. And the elevator action lift game. All the lifts that are involved there. There's our top 5. I think we've made an excellent choice there. If you agree with us or if you don't, leave us a comment That's how you say it. It's on either M4G, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, website, InRetroSpectPodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at InRetroSpect. This may be unscheduled and unrehearsed, but the gremlin never is. So he'll always let you know when the next show is out. So as the beautiful music plays from the ascension to the cradle on the final level of GoldenEye, I've been Sam Turner, been joined by Peter Willington, Kris Darby and Daniel Frost, and this has been In Retrospect Raw. In Retrospect Raw. In Retrospect Raw.